Hello, Ames Chamber of Commerce members. This is Drew Camp, Director of Public Policy here at the Ames Chamber of Commerce. Before we get into our interview with Tim Gartin, the Ward 2 City Councilman on Ames City Council, he's an incumbent running unopposed for his third term on the council. I do have to thank, before we get started, though, Model Farm and Iowa State Daily Media Group. They're letting us use their studio as well as their equipment and members of their team to really make sure that we can provide you the best available service and quality of video and interview possible. So before we get started, I really wanted to make sure I thanked them. But with that, I will now turn to our interviewee, Tim Gartin. Like I said, he's the Ward 2 City Council member, current incumbent on City Council. Tim, thanks for being here with us this morning.
Yeah, happy to be here, and thank you to the Chamber and to the Daily Group for putting all this together.
And kind of jumping right into the questions, as a business advocacy organization, you've worked with the Chamber several years now with your 6 years now on council. So what do you see as the biggest issue facing the Ames business community?
Right. Well, big picture, the city of Ames went for literally a 10-year period without adding a single private sector job to the economy. And the problem with that is that the city of Ames is very dependent on federal and state dollars. So much so that if there was ever a major drawdown in federal funding or state funding for positions here in the community, that would have devastating impacts on our economy. So one of the reasons I ran for city council was to help diversify the platform of jobs that we have in the community. So the Chamber of Commerce has been an incredible partner in that effort, both to retain businesses that are here, to attract new businesses, but I'm also very excited about the entrepreneurial ecosystem that's emerging, so that when people come up with ideas and they want to start a business, maybe it's a technology transfer type of opportunity from Iowa State, that there's a place for them to land here in Ames. So the Chamber has been a phenomenal partner. And as a result of that, over the last 10 years, and you can correct me if I'm wrong on the numbers, but we have added, let me get my numbers here, I believe it's 8,400 jobs in Ames since 2010, over 10,000 jobs in Story County in general. That's tremendous progress in a short amount of time. And as a result, we have the lowest unemployment rate, not just in the state, but in the country. So we couldn't have done this without the hard work of the Chamber of Commerce.
Yeah, thanks, Tim. You hit on several important points as well. We really look at, with our affiliate organizations, we have Ames City Capital, who's investing in some of those seed-based and those startup companies, and we've seen some exponential growth with several of them. But then also we have Startup Ames now under our umbrella, and we also just entered into a partnership under Rick Sanders' leadership, the Research Park, with the Research Park as well. So those are really hitting some of our core tenants, and we really want to make sure we're building that ecosystem and working with the city as well. We know that's something, as we work with them, that's one of the priorities we have mutually.
Right.
And then as we kind of look forward to, how do you think, you touched on the fact that we have very, very low unemployment here in Ames and Story County. So one of the things we talk about a lot is how can we attract population and also retain and attract talent in doing so? So what are some ways that you see the mayor and council being able to assist in growing our population and therefore our workforce?
Well, great question. So Ames will never have mountains. We will never have an ocean. But what we do have is a quality of life that is very difficult to touch. When I visit with scientists, engineers, business people who have chosen Ames, I always try to ask them, why did you choose Ames? It's important as a council member for me to hear why people who had choices chose Ames. And by far, the #1 issue is a quality of life. So as a council, we have to ask ourselves constantly, what are things that we can do to improve the quality of life? Some things we have a direct involvement with, and some we don't. For example, I think our school system is fantastic. So we aren't involved in the direct governance of the schools. That's handled by the school board. But we partner with them, and we always ask the question, what can we do to be supportive of the work that you're doing in our schools? So for example, our public library and our parks and rec are constantly finding ways to create opportunities for our children. But also amenities like our park system. We spend a tremendous amount in our bike trail infrastructure each year. And I'm very glad to see us continue to grow those amenities in the community that will try to draw people to our town.
And obviously, we touched on workforce being a big issue and unemployment, but if you had to pick the most pressing issue facing the Ames community, what is it, and how do you propose it being addressed or managed?
Sure. Well, the number one issue has to be our housing supply. So when employers are considering, should I choose Ames or should I choose another community, one of their considerations has to be, well, where will my employees live? Will the jobs that I have support a house payment that is comparable to what we have here in Ames to buy a house? Those are real questions that employers have to ask. And affordable housing is a very difficult topic to work through. How much time do we have here? Like 3 or 4 hours?
Yeah, something like that.
Okay. So the quick version of this is that ultimately we will never drive the cost of housing down to the point where we're going to be comparable with many of the communities around us. It's a law of supply and demand. Now, the good news is that as part of our Ames 2040 comprehensive plan, we're spending a lot of time focusing on housing, not exclusively housing. But the experts are telling us that the Ames population is likely to grow by 15,000 people by 2040. Where are we going to put those 15,000 people? Drew, are you going to take a few? I mean, maybe I can take a few, live with me? No?
I could take a few, but not very many.
Not very many, okay.
Maybe one
So,
or two.
and so if they're not going to live with Drew and me, then where are they going to live? So we're looking at ways in which Ames will grow in different directions from the community, but also with infill projects. So housing has to be the number one issue.
And as you look at, you're running unopposed, so it's kind of a foregone conclusion that you'll be serving another 4 years on the city council. So if as you look forward in 4 years from now, what one thing do you hope to have accomplished in that as you look at, finishing up your next term in 2023?
Yeah, so I believe in term limits, and so as a result of another 4-year term, that would be 10 years in service. And I've tentatively decided this will be my last term because I think it's good to have other people with new ideas and new energy come in, and so I'm going to practice term limits on myself. And so unless there was some kind of major crisis with the city, I am thinking about what I would like to see accomplished in my last 4 years. So the Ames Comprehensive Plan, the 2040 plan, is a very important document that will guide the city into the future. I also have some other goals that are a bit different in that I'm also very concerned about our human services. And one of the things that is important for the quality of life is that there are people in our community that are struggling. And it is important that we generate volunteers in the community that are making a difference in the lives of people who are struggling. For example, in Ames, we have a waiting list of children who need a mentor. And that weighs heavily on me because I think in a community like Ames, we should have a waiting list of adults who want a child to mentor, not a waiting list of children who want a mentor. There are ways in which we can make a real difference in our community. I think everyone needs to find a place where they can serve and give back. So that's also very important to the quality of life.
Well, thank you very much for hitting on those points. Those are, they hit right at home with us as well. We're very much about giving back to the community at the Chamber as well. And I would be remiss if I didn't thank you for also being a mentor. I know you're a mentor. I'm also a mentor. So that's something I really make sure that I take time with, and I know you do as well, and I commend you for that.
Mm-hmm.
As we look at mayor and city council positions, they're obviously nonpartisan offices. So obviously, if you look at the national and state climate, things have become hyper-partisan, dare I say. So as you look at running for and being in, for 6 years now, a nonpartisan office, how do you make sure you keep partisanship out of local politics?
That is such a powerful question. The United States has not been as divided politically as we are now since the Civil War. That's really remarkable. And so the partisan divide is really toxic at both federal and state levels. And we work very hard to keep that out of local nonpartisan politics. So I don't wear anyone's jersey. So I have a couple thoughts on this. First of all, we work very hard with respect to civility in our city council. We come from a variety of worldviews, but I think there's a high degree of respect for each other. I love the people that I serve. I respect them. And if we don't agree on something, I presume that they're right and I'm wrong. And I need to figure out what I'm missing so I can get on the right page. That's the kind of attitude that pervades our conversation. It hasn't always been that way on this city council, and it comes with a degree of focus. Personally, when I got involved with this position, I drew back, and I am not involved with partisan politics. And I think city council members need to sort of refrain from involvement in those things. And I would certainly like to send a message, if I could, in this video to both the Republican and the Democratic parties. Focus on those offices that are partisan. I think you have enough to do there. And please stay out of the nonpartisan roles. In fact, I will take this one step further. I actually believe that our county offices should be nonpartisan. I think there's no reason why we should have a partisan treasurer or recorder or auditor or county attorney. I think that's sort of nonsensical for them to wear a jersey. In fact, even our county board of supervisors, I'm not sure that they're any more different than we are, that they should have a partisan jersey on. And so I'm a big believer in nonpartisan politics. Our roads and our police services, fire, they're nonpartisan, and I think very highly of what we have here.
Thanks, Tim. Those are really, really good points. And those are things, obviously, as a nonpartisan, apolitical organization, we're very strongly believe in those same things as well, because you always have to be able to work with individuals or bodies, whatever it may be, regardless of political affiliation.
Correct.
And obviously, I've mentioned you're running unopposed. So rather than ask, what sets you apart from other candidates seeking this office, but you're also in a unique role of the fact that you've been able to serve for 6 years before. So what really makes you unique as far as an elected official and a public servant? What makes you unique in the role that you occupy?
Well, I don't want to speak so highly of myself that I have something that the other people in council really don't have. All of us have a certain capacity to see the entire field. So oftentimes I meet people who are interested in city government, but they're interested in just one issue. Maybe they're interested in Parks and Rec, or they're interested in the environment, or they're interested in the library. There are ways in which they can serve and be involved. I think if I maybe bring one thing that I hope is helpful is I'm a numbers guy. So when it comes to the budget work we do in January, that's an area that's very important to me. The City of Ames budget is around $250 million. That's a lot of your money. And we steward that with great care, and we literally go through the budget on a line-by-line basis to make sure that we're doing a good job with your tax dollars. And I'm proud to say that Ames has one of the lowest property tax rates in the state, particularly for a city our size. And that comes from the hard work of our city manager, our finance department, and the department chairs who do an extraordinary job in stewarding these resources. But I also think some credit needs to be given to the city council that shows discipline and restraint in managing our city's resources.
And I thank you for those comments, because that was especially applicable in the 2019 legislative session when we were having a spirited conversation about property tax reform. And one of the positives that we were able to have as a community, as an Ames municipal community, is the fact that some entities, if with the limitations being put on with property tax, it was going to be impact them astronomically. But the fact that you guys have managed our budget, you, the city manager, the finance director, all the way down the line, it allowed us some flexibility that some other communities will not have. So I think that's important to note as well, because that was highly applicable in the 2019 session as we worked through those details. Tim, those are all the questions I have, so thank you very much for being here with us today, and we look forward to having you on another 4 years on City Council and helping make Ames a better place.
Well, I'm happy to serve, and I encourage people to vote. These matters are important. Ask hard questions, and voting is on November 5th.
Thank you. Yes, November 5th is the election, so make sure you do get out to vote. And you also, if you're not available on November 5th, make sure you get your absentee ballot. Those come out a week from today on October 7th. So thank you very much, and everyone have a nice rest of the day.
Thank you very much.